This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Elimu Bora Working Group Policy Advisor, already here with us in the studio. Good morning, Boaz.
Good morning, Du. Good morning.
Morning.
Dennis,
Hi.
how are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Thanks for inviting me.
No, well, thank you for coming. And, like we
my
say,
pleasure.
we'll talk this thing to a solution. If we're going to have to engage, we're going to have to look for a way around this and maybe just find out what the problem is.
That's the tone.
Yep.
Yes.
Soon, Professor Solomon Igosangwa Shibairo, who is the VC of the Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology, will join us as well for us to move into this conversation because they also sit right at the center of this in terms of what's going on. All right, before we get into things proper, because it's going to be hot, Dennis has taken us to Southern Africa this week.
Yes, we are in Malawi. And think about Malawi, think Lake Malawi. Why Lake Malawi? Because it covers 20% of the total landmass in the country. But good thing about that lake is fact that you can enjoy the white sandy beaches that it has. You can enjoy one of the most beautiful sunsets in the country. And also the fish species that is found in that lake is next to none, especially in the continent. Bird watching is something that, Boaz, maybe if you enjoy birds, you can go
The fish you already mentioned.
yeah, but the proverb that we get says, the mosquito told the elephant, your size is impressive, but your skin is still my dinner table. How would you interpret it?
That's a daring mosquito. And I even wonder how that mosquito got the elephant's ear. But be that as it may, I think that depicts how nature is. There's that interdependence on the creations of God, the creatures that were put here on earth. So in as much as you're that elephant, you're huge, you're placed there probably to serve a purpose. So even all of us, whatever spaces you find yourself in and all that, Dennis, just by being here, the guy who fixes these things will still have to do that. So there's a way in which there's a shared function and that some of the spaces you occupy could be of benefit to me, even without hurting you, So the mosquito, that's a brave one, just going to the ear of the elephant, getting that attention in itself. And indeed, I think that conversation should continue.
Yeah.
If the elephant and the mosquito can have a conversation, why not us?
Yes.
Particularly on education. An elephantastic research. Thank you.
Well interpreted, son.
Indeed, an elephantastic issue that we're looking at this morning.
Yes.
So yesterday and the week before, we had quite a rant, and we said, okay, come on, what exactly is happening here? That here we are 2.5 years down the line, and we still don't seem to have, a solution to this. And so what we wanted to do now is to strategically look at what the issue is and then perhaps put it out there, because it's very possible that the folks who are in the middle of a problem may not be aware of what a possible solution might be if now it's not. That's why you throw things into the ring.
Sure.
So the university funding model that everybody went hullabaloo about, am I least vulnerable, approaching poverty, all of those things. What was it called, that thing? Means testing.
The means testing instrument.
Now, this was come about by the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms that went around the country. You were not part of that party.
I made submission, not me. We made submission.
There you go.
I would
the Elimu group made submissions into what was going to be done. In terms of what was adopted by the party, is a totally different kettle of fish.
Sure.
But one of the things that came out of this, at least at the university level, was this funding model, whereby there's a pool of money, supposedly, and then you come and say, I am applying for funding, essentially. And that based on my index, then you would then say, this is the amount of money that we're going to give you. For some, it was going to be full grant. For others, it was going to be partial grant, kind of like a double partial grant, partial loan.
Yeah.
For some people, it would have been complete loan. But all of this was going to come from the funds.
Okay.
it has not worked for the last 2.5 years.
3 years.
40%, only 40% is able to be buoyed by this model because they don't have the funds, or at least that's what they tell us. And so, 2 weeks ago, last week, the president said, well, you know what we're going to do? I'll give you the money. Okay? See, so problem solved.
Sorted. Why not?
Okay, so we go home then.
Yeah.
Happy?
And allow me to scope it from a background I know, which is very familiar. Dennis is, I said this is an elephantastic matter. Yeah. And first, a disclosure. And Dennis, and I think Kenyans who've been following this know that Elimu Bora Working Group, Kenya Human Rights Commission, Student Caucus, and Boaz, Waruku, I think there were 4 parties. We took this matter to court.
Yes.
And at the High Court, after the submissions we made, it was found to be totally unconstitutional. And had it not been for the appeal that the government made, it would have been thrown out completely that time. The issues that we raised are so many, and indeed, I would say that part of what the president alluded to last week, that there are young ones who would have wished to do certain courses, but because of affordability factor, when they looked at the prices, when they looked at the costs, then they opted for other things because they were saying, having gone through high school under duress, stress of funds, they wouldn't wish to get into another course where they were not certain they would be able to meet that cost. So that's part of what I think the president came out very, very openly about it. And so we actually, part of why we moved to court was to ensure that whatever the funding model that they wanted to place should be one that would meet the needs of this country. And so I think I need to disclose that so that even when I am sitting here and from where I'll be, not punching, but because we are finding solutions, it should be seen that we are actually trying to look and locate where could we get the solutions or answers to this. And indeed, I hope my good brother, the Vice Chancellor, would also be here so that we have a robust engagement on this matter. Because indeed, education is key. And the second thing I would do, because I said I wanted to scope it from the back, I think sitting here, I'm elated. I am very happy that the topmost office of this land, for once, realized that what Kenyans have been saying is true. And indeed, unequivocally, he stated that the universal tertiary education would be achieved starting September. We are just a month away. That those who sit their KCSE and qualify, get admission to these public institutions, that they would be able to get the support. He said full support. And full support means full support. So we do not want us to start walking back because that is what Elimu Bora and those who have been doing research in education realize. And let me also scope it back to 2002. I think because we are setting that context so that we'll be able to know. 2002, there were campaigns, serious ones. And Moi's term was coming to an end. He had this project called Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And then the entire country more or less said, no, I think Moi seemed not to be getting the issues which are troubling us more. We want free and universal education for everyone. And they started with the basic education, actually not basic, but primary. And Moi had indicated that based on his experience, having been the one in charge, 24 years as president, more than 10 years as vice president, he told Kenyans it is not possible. In other words, political intention from Moi and the coterie around him was that it is not possible. So at times, why I'm doing that is because it starts from the mind. And it also starts from the political will of whoever is there. Because Mwai Kibaki, who had served as the vice president and finance minister at some point with the team of NAC, said, no, it is possible. We can actually afford this. And indeed, immediately after that, you see the kind of brains that he put together, the Professor Anyang Nyong, Professor George Saitoti Education. Anyang Nyong was leading the planning. And then Mwiraria Finance, that team and himself, he said, I want solutions. We promise these people. It must be done. So it is political goodwill. And that's why I'm saying I'm elated, because the president himself pronounced this for the tertiary level. Because right from the basic, from the foundations of the education we've had, our expectations and discussion has been that in Kenya, indeed we have enough resources to guarantee each and every young one in this country, the young citizens of this country, full support from basic to tertiary. I think it is in this studio where we have discussed as Elimubora before, because based on the analysis, we even looked at the number of funds which are almost all over. And we said, we are able to afford this if we discipline ourselves, if we know that the amount of money we are putting into education. For instance, the year that ended, we had over 702 billion shillings in education. This year, the financial year 2026, 2027, we have over 776 billion. But besides that, we also still have the monies going to education through the CDFs, so many, all these things, including the one going to research. Those are all scoped to be educational. So it is not that we lack the resources to make things work. It is because the discipline and accountability that is required is what is not making us go forward. And picking on that point where Kibaki insisted that we promised and it must go. Actually, if you look at some of the statements, because I want to look at the statements of the presidents, because that is where the political intention is. Ruto last week said it is possible. Kibaki said it is possible and went ahead to say, for those who are saying, no, but education has been getting a lot of money. He said for any country to be competitive in life, to be competitive and have advantage about the others, you must do, he called it massive investment in education. And because when you do so, then you are guaranteeing the future of the younger generation and the future of this country. And that investment means you put in more and more, because education generally will always get more. And it has been getting, it is the ministry that has been getting the largest share. But the discipline I'm talking about, where we are able to actually ensure that people do not use education resources for their own personal gain, that we do not transfer money to ghosts who end up withdrawing. Our banks and the financial system are so strict that a ghost cannot withdraw money. But ours do with it. So in discipline, corruption and all that, once we deal with that, we'll be able to support our children. The basic education level, I said, that is already guaranteed by the Constitution. We don't have to renegotiate it. But even the tertiary level, we must also ensure that it is guaranteed, because it is at that point when the youth, the Constitution provides for them, Article 55, that we must provide a support for them for the tertiary training to achieve the highest level.
Okay, so let's look at what exactly this money goes to do. And perhaps that will help us to understand then when we say that it is not applied, what happens. So when a student and let's focus a little bit here on university, because we know that capitation that goes to secondary schools, for example, takes care of a certain, it furnishes tuition, it furnishes the payment of teachers, their salaries, and other emoluments that you would have at school, books,
cost drivers, very specific.
Specific cost drivers for capitation. Now, when we get to the university level, let us understand this, because sometimes we have conversations conversations void of information.
Yes.
So it doesn't allow us to then reach solutions. Now, at the university level, we have public universities, meaning what? I think Kenya has 7? 6?
Wow, over 38.
No.
Public
If we look at
universities.
the ones that are held as
Actually,
parastatals, University of Nairobi.
Actually, there are many. There are about 30.
That are held as parastatals?
There's 38.
That are noted as
with
parastatals?
charters, as public universities.
But are held as parastatals is what I'm asking.
When you say parastatal, that was a term that was being used for the corporations established by government to provide. Yes.
All right. So now we talk about with
charter for public universities.
So now with the
there are 38 chartered.
So with the almost 40 public universities in Kenya, what we are talking about is that they are to an extent owned by government.
Yes.
The government is running them and is paying salaries of the teachers and the support staff, adjunct staff.
Yes.
All of that is being paid for by now. The students who attend these universities, when we say that you're going to a public university, number one, we know that the cost of that education then is heavily subsidized because it is owned by government, right? Now, these students then who are looking for funding, what is that money for?
Okay. Thank you very much, Ndu. It would have been good even to get a little history about the funding of our public universities. Because what you're mentioning, there was a period in this country when students who joined the university would just walk from home. I'm saying walking includes flying, and nobody was flying.
Leave their home.
Just leave home to
Just leave home to get to the universities. Well, walk from home to the university without anything and study. Why? Food was there for free. They were even being given something called boom out of pocket so that you are able to make, to cater for other things.
Again, when you say, I think that's why I'm asking.
Yes.
We need to be careful when we say this because there's the assumption that on the side of the street, there are loaves of bread that are just hanging out there and the students go pick up food and go. Somebody is paying for it. So when we say free, are we not talking about government-supported, funded programs?
Yes.
Okay. I just need to clarify.
No, I'm very clear. What you are explaining is very clear because actually when we talk of free, I like calling it universal.
Yeah.
And what the president talked about, full support, that essentially means what we are talking about.
Okay.
It means that already the costs, the needs of the learning at those levels have already been taken care of through the public pass. That the equipment that you require to train as media technologists, that as engineers and all that, those equipments have been purchased or are being serviced or are being upgraded, graded by those funds. That the teachers or the lecturers, there's a budget that is already being used to pay for them. That all the teaching and learning materials required, including at the university level, research component, that is going to be there. But when now you want the learners to go in, I think this is where we had a challenge with the model, which which has metamorphosized now twice. When President Ruto took over, there was the model they were calling the differentiated funding model. Yes. That differentiated funding model, they said, there are certain courses which would require a little bit more, and this more should be paid for by the government. They identified them and they said, these ones will require that funding direct from the government, not placed on the head of any student.
Okay.
So in other words, you just budgeted for what does the University of Nairobi want? Jomo Kenyatta, Egerton, Moi,
So if I
Maseno,
come in there, if I'm
that.
studying one of these courses, pick one. If I'm studying medicine, and there was an additional cost to that, away from B.Ed, for example, that the additional costs, students and stakeholders are saying that cost should not be borne by me, but it should be borne by government.
Yes, at that particular time, the government was supposed to shoulder that.
Okay.
And the analysis and the assessment done was that the universities were being starved of funds. In other words, education was not being prioritized even at that top level. Without that prioritization, then many of the universities, some are almost declaring redundancies. You saw that. Moi and Digiton are examples. I think we can cite authoritatively, because that is on record, public record. So because the universities were not being funded as should have been, Ruto comes in and says, okay, now we want to have it as student-centered. You see the difference now that they were coming with. But when they say the student-centered, they loaded more of this funding on the student. And they said, okay, we'll now try to see for which course, how much does it require? And this cost is supposed to be apportioned to the student. And the student, if you can't afford, first they say there's partial that will be a scholarship that the government will give you. And then there's a component which now you'll apply to Higher Education Loans Board. And once you apply, then you are able now to, if you get the loan, then you are able to meet that cost. And then they said there's a household contribution. So you see, they were changing that kind of component in financing. What that means, that is where, and when you mentioned the means testing instrument, it became apparent that they had not thought through this process very well. Why? In fact, those are some of the grounds which Kenyans contested so heavily, because they said this banding of student, you find first they started with 4 bands, band 1, 2, 3, 4. Then as they started implementing, they increased to band 5. And they're saying, based on the abilities of your families. And so that really left so many of the students. And some found themselves in bands which were not necessarily right. That would elevate them to be looked at as capable or able. But that is why even the courts, when they were dissecting this, they said, what happens when this means testing instrument does not accurately place someone? And so the brief period that they were given was simply to undertake public awareness and ensure that there's an appellate system within that. But all that, we were still saying, you are not fixing the problem of financing university education.
So when it was happening before, I'm sorry.
Okay,
when it was happening before that, this boom that I've heard about was going on, and that people could, from the comments that we are seeing, people could go into the cafeteria, for example, at a university or at a training college and just hand in a meal card and eat.
The student will eat
3 meals a day, and that their beddings in your accommodation, whatever. Money was being put towards this function. So we are saying that over time, this seizure has taken place where the money, either not adequate or not at all, is being applied to these very same things. Okay.
True.
I just needed to clarify that, Dennis.
You see, when you talk about funding education, there is what was called as the boom at the time. There is help that also came into place and was
in the 90s.
In the 90s.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, then the government decides we need to find a different way that, according to them, was superior and was student-centered.
Yes.
But even while at that, in this new model that is there, one asks the question, was there initial testing of this new model that would inform decision as to whether to implement it or improve on help that had been there since the 90s and needed fixing? Why do I ask that? Because based off information that you get today, and you're free to correct us if you're wrong, is that we're going back to help and fix what was not happening before and make it better. And with that then, Boaz, one asks the question, whilst we are going back, we're finding old students, is this a solution? Or is this just another statement that is not backed by data, is not backed by advice, is not backed by any intention of doing it right? Because even help itself did not get it right.
Thank you. You are so spot on, because anything and everything we do in education, and indeed I know it should be even in other fields, should be backed by data, evidence-based. And before you introduce something new, first you must assess what is wrong with the existing framework. All these details, we had expected that they are the things that the Professor Munavu Commission, the Presidential Working Party. Of course, when I say Professor Munavu, I know the public understands that. So all these are the details that they needed to have addressed. Unfortunately, in our thinking, I had a disclaimer at the beginning, because that's why we challenged this. We felt that it was not done. We felt that was because there were several indicators. For instance, universities provided fee structures which were so huge, and the differences were so huge. And you're wondering what then informs them in terms of changing or charging this, to the extent that private universities in the country became cheaper than the public university. We say this is a problem. We say this is a problem because the public universities should be more accessible and affordable for these young ones. And so it appears the due diligence, the data collection, the analysis and the evidence that was done was not sufficient. And indeed, for me, the facts do not lie, and we can revisit history. Some history I so resent. The introduction of this model, which has pushed out so many of the children from the TVETs and the universities, its introduction was not well thought out, and it was rushed. Because you remember, this was born out of the second interim report by the Munavu Commission to brief the president. The first interim report placed CBC, the junior school, domicile them in lower primary. The second interim report is the one that dealt with financing of higher education. And when that interim report was being unveiled, I think that was in July 2023, it was being unveiled. At the time, you remember the CUPS, that is Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Services. They had been told not to open their portal for the applications and people to start making requests, because they were still conversing on how to roll out the financing, because they were more clear that they would change that. But when that second interim report was being delivered, I think the media records can bear us out, because again, any of us who dared to ask for the blueprint of that second interim report did not necessarily get it. So the president at the time dismissed that second interim report. I think if you recall, because I'm saying some things are historical but recent history. He actually said, this is not what I expected. But you can imagine that that was a presidential function where he was literally getting a feedback and a report that he was supposed to launch. And I think as Limubora, we constantly say at that particular moment we smelled a rat, and we actually called out that action because we said, I think there was some ping-pong politics being at play. We said that it was not possible that a president can arrive at a presidential function and dismiss an interim report, pretending that he had not known the content. We said, this one, there's some politics playing here. And at that particular moment, we started and continue to say, let us divorce politics from education. Because the moment you fuse this, then you do not know what the intentions are. But shortly after he dismissed, he called the media and said, now this is the blueprint. Which blueprint is what caused the chaos that we saw? Some student, more than 23,000, it was more than 24,000, who qualified did not even bother to apply. Why? Because the costs were so exaggerated, so high. That's why I'm saying the public universities became more expensive than private universities. And indeed, as we speak, that has completely not changed. That's why you'll find the private universities are thriving. They have engaged even multiple streams and a number of intakes. And the public university is still struggling. The students and learners in those public universities are still struggling on how do they do this. So what you're saying that evidence should have led us into something we asked what was that terribly wrong that required for a total departure from the framework as established by the HELB Act, because at that point it is the Higher Education Loans Board Act, which was a legal instrument for funding university or higher education. We said, how could they not just then address the gaps within that and then fix it? But it was a total overhaul, and the total overhaul then met a lack of preparedness. Because the legal framework, among the things that the court agreed with, I don't have to get into that because the appellate process, I think everything is almost done and it is just the delivery of its decision soon. But the fact that some of the things which you were asking, how come the gaps which were there had not been seen and had not been sealed? What was actually wrong? How can the new system, which was now centered on the student, made the student to feel so overburdened? For example, I'll give you practical examples of what happened. Our public universities were straddled in debt.
Yes.
A lot of it.
Still are.
And they still are, but we indeed expected that the cure would be this model. But because that situation, they said it would change. But it hasn't changed. So probably Ndu and Dennis, for me, I said I'm taking the president on his word. Because I know it is possible that from the basic education level to the tertiary level, it is possible for Kenya to guarantee that. We are embracing that and firmly embedding it and trying to ensure it is coded within the legal instrument, because right now you're seeing there are still talks about, we are going to amend the HELB Act. Others, no, we are actually introducing the tertiary placement and funding bill, you know. But we want to see the concrete proposals. And indeed, I think because the president is our servant, when he makes pronouncements, let him make life a little bit easier for Kenyans. Not for politics or optics or for whatever it is. Because making it easier for us is that he should give us a document. The Constitution, Article 135, requires him to make that commitment. Any decision he makes and pronounces, it should be written. And so that then we can interrogate that and help him to improve it. But this one, we are taking him on his word. And we are saying, should that be implemented, we are able to protect it to ensure the right of every young person in this country.
Because education funding for a very long time has been, I look at it from different perspectives. So there is what the student, then the parents pay to universities. Then there has been budgetary allocations that then the government as well gives the universities. And then there is the other component, which was a loan that would be transferred through HELB then to students. So you look at three sources of funding through education towards our university education. But one thing was that we've never really discussed was then what after taking a student through university education. They've now graduated, because the third component, which is HELB loan, is supposed to be paid by the student immediately they get a job opportunity, right? Therefore, when you talk about university education, we equally should be talking about opportunities there are, so that these students, these graduates, would be able to give back to that kitty so that other students as well get these services. Are we really being serious when you're talking about, fine, we will fund, but we're not talking about also creating a good environment to have investors, to have these job opportunities, so that it is also not a burden to the government to continue funding university education, because those who went through the system have opportunities and they are paying so that their juniors as well can go through the very same process. Why does it end up just at we will pay?
Thank you. What the question you're raising touches on the quality of what we're providing at the tertiary level, TVETs and the universities, because it was only with the quality that you can be assured that the economy would thrive. And of course, the economy is other factors being constant, other factors including politics of the land, democratic space and all. And for us as a country, I think ensuring that at the tertiary level we get the quality right, so that the components, the ones that you're referring to, I want us to really depart from that. Why? Because the president already pronounced that there'll be full support. Because if we are discussing still where we have come from, we want to be, I think do say we are looking for solutions. And as a Limubora, we are here and saying solution is available, that the resources Kenya has is adequate with proper discipline and accountability to guarantee proper education. And I think as has also been discussed by many Kenyans within, there's a team called the Kenya National Interface Team with several other professionals and experts and veterans who have been in the field championing a cause for education and other issues in this country. We said as a core national interest for this country, that education should be gotten right, so that even when we are going through muddy waters with everything else, but we are certain that through this quality framework providing education, we will be able to get the good engineers, the good doctors, the good teachers, the good clinicians, everybody, the IT, the media and all, who will be able to open up this space, including incubation at those highest level, incubation of good ideas, that is through the research fund. Why? Because a number of areas, a number of countries that have gone ahead do that. Look at China. They have invested heavily in education. In fact, right now, just as people are discussing this, the framework of education within the Chinese community is such that if, Dennis, you are able to just innovate something, okay, top level innovation and all, necessarily being supported through whichever means and all that, that the certification that is assigned to that. That certification, in some corners, it is equivalent to a PhD certification. You can imagine that, because they know the value of innovation. In the country here, we delink research, proper research, at the university and the TVET level. We delink it from the research that would cause the industrialization that we are looking at. And I think that detachment is now making us feel like when we go to the university and the TVET, we are doing research in partial fulfillment for a requirement of a diploma, of a bachelor's, of a master's, or we're dealing with theses and dissertations for the PhDs, It is not necessarily that. Our learning process should be integrated so that the quality parameters and the products that we have are the ones that are incubated. Look at, I give the example of M-Pesa. The IT people and the finance guys, gurus, thought through that and created it and has made services, just ensuring that financial system and service is much easier. That was an innovation created here in Kenya. I think until recently, even in the UK, they were not using the M-Pesa. And they realized that this thing is actually workable. So I'm saying not just on the finance and service areas, but we can innovate, we can create. We are doing so very, very well at the basic level and particularly the secondary schools. You've seen annual science congress, technology and innovation. But then we do not pick those good ideas and support them and nurture them. So for me, when the president talked about full support, where we sit as a Limubora, we are looking at that. What does that full support mean? That full support means that all the provision, the needs of the learning, the training that would be taking place within the TVETs, colleges, and the universities are catered for from taxpayers' money without people saying there's a lot more money going in there. We would also be looking at the students who are coming in because they are coming from various backgrounds. They also get the support they require to be there to retain themselves, because as of now, there are students who cannot even feed themselves when they are on campus. And learning cannot take place on an empty stomach.
Can we go
Because
to
yeah.
in 2023?
Yeah.
So 2022, you had about 180,000 students who were coming into the university.
Yeah.
Of course, we're still talking public here.
Yes.
In 2024, that number increased by about 20. Actually, no, about 140 increased to about 160, and then to 2025 increased to about 180. And then this year, in September, the number of students after COOPs did their thing is coming to about 200,000. So what we are saying, Boaz, is that the model, which was only catering for about 40% of this whole number, because remember that even if you brought in new students in 2024, there were still students who are studying under this program.
Yeah.
If you brought in new students in 2025, the 2023, 2024 were still in school.
Yes.
So you're coming into 2026 September, this
Yep.
intake,
Yep.
and you're still on top of the 180 from 2025, you're still on top of the 160 from 2024, and upon the 140 from 2023. Not even looking at who was coming before.
Yes.
So with this declaration is what we are saying, that the students who then need support, or everybody who is coming in, the 200 and something thousand in September, with the declaration from the president, will just show up to school, get whatever they need, and start studying.
That is a declaration the president made.
So the
This
ones
is
who
what
have
we have
been
been-
admitted into the 39 public universities in the country
Yeah.
will just need to show up. They will get their accommodation if they are living in on campus.
That's the statement of the
They
president.
will be fed, they will read, and the lecturers and adjuncts
Will
and
be
support
paid.
staff will be paid.
You are saying, that's why I'm saying the president's decision and statement should be there in written, because that's what the Constitution demands, 135, so that then we do not start misinterpreting him. Because for me, and from Limobora, where we come from, when he said full support is not 99% support. It is 100% support. And we are saying we want to support that and encourage because it is doable. What you're talking about, Ndo? Education, it is more like a process line. There are those that are just getting in. There are those in the middle. There are also those exiting.
Yes.
So that is when you're planning for the full support, you do not just plan
For the ones who are coming
for
in
the
in
ones who are
September.
coming in.
Yeah.
Or like your house.
Yeah.
When you're planning for the meals or for food, you do not just plan for breakfast because you're woken up hungry. You must ensure there'll be lunch and dinner and whatever it is. So this full support, which we embrace, and we do not want Kenyans to move away from that statement. The only thing is we want it to be concretely signed and a bill in Parliament
But he
that
said
will
there's a bill.
actualize it. Sorry?
He said there's a bill.
He said there's a bill. We're still looking for that bill to interrogate and help improve that bill. Why it is important? Because where it is not anchored in law, definitely, we do not want a situation where there's a pronouncement and then you also initiate a procedure to go and defeat it in court because you did not follow the due process.
So what
That
is going
why
to
we're
happen?
supporting.
I don't know if anybody knows. But usually,
Yes.
September comes after August. Usually.
Yeah.
Yes,
Usually.
you're right.
So
Yes.
exactly.
And that's 30 days.
Yes.
And that is when new students
The new students, yes.
are reporting.
First years freshers.
Yeah, the
are
freshers.
joining.
The
Yes.
ones that were placed by COOPs in April last year before they then went and sat KCSE in 2025. They are the ones who are going into university in September.
Yes.
The ones for which this funding declaration, hallelujah, is supposed to go towards. How are we sure that these kids are going to go to school?
We don't, when you're asking, those are questions which are legitimate, but those are the questions why we have a government in place. How? The mechanics of actualizing that, starting with the planning. Your question would go to, how come when the budget process was going on?
Oh, it did,
Wasn't
Boaz.
it?
I already know what you're going to ask.
Yes,
and
I
I've been
did.
asking that
Yes.
question, that if we were dependent on data and
Yes, we would have
information,
informed it.
it would have informed the
gone
budget
there.
that
Yes.
just closed in
It would have
June.
been there because looking at the provisions that are also made in the budget as of today, they did not provide for that full support for the higher education. But we are saying, there's Article 224 with the supplementary budget.
Yeah.
So why we are taking this on a very positive level? Because for the first time we are saying the president, through you, take this supplementary budget to Parliament so that additional money is given to education for the full support. We do not want to renege on this.
I see what you're doing, Boaz, but it's very hopeful, because when is the last time that you saw a supplementary budget going towards actual major indices on development? This education being one of them.
Unfortunately, the practice has been bad, but we must depart from that bad practice. For me, because do you remember your opening statement is that we must look for the solutions.
I know.
And those solutions means that the old habits we used to have must be discarded.
Okay.
That only we do not use money and misapply it to other things. We prioritize education. For me, I would have insisted and looked at it that when the bill is being done, that the prioritization done and the safeguards are such that you cannot defund education. That would be the anchor, ironclad, that you cannot remove any component of that support. When you mean full must mean full, not 99.999 and 90 cents full. It must mean 100% full support. And we want that to be actualized because we know it is doable.
What remains as we speak right now, that's just another, what many would say, a roadside declaration by the president, because it is not enshrined in any policy. There is a bill that is coming, yes. But what if, what if this doesn't happen? What does it mean to the students?
But then I think because first, do you know what that statement has done? That kind of sampling that is going on is many of those students are so happy and excited they are joining campus. They are not even the Harambes that were being organized for. Those ones are, why do you want Harambe? And we are going for free.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, you as a parent, you have told your children, endeni mcheze, mkirudi jioni kuna chakula. Alafu wanakuja wanapata wewe ndio they say mengethia or umezuba. You're just watching there, yeah? That you do not want to understand. People in my village back in Kanyaluo, Homa Bay, those everywhere in this country are excited because they are waiting for this free, the full support from the government. And indeed, that would be a turnaround. If you say so, then they are going to sleep hungry. My friend, you'll be in trouble. So let us be very clear. What the president said, it was not a joke. I think he is not a comedian in any platform that can just make any statement to just for applause or for people just to be happy. He's a policy driver. He's an implementer. He has an accountability to the public that whatever decisions that he makes are actually followed through with action. And I tell you, Ndu, in Kenya, this problem of always having the best legal frameworks, the best policies, and everything then collapses at implementation. We must depart from it. We know it has been a bad practice. We cannot carry it forward.
Say hallelujah.
Hallelujah and amen.
So, Boaz says it's going to happen. Okay.
It must happen. The president committed on that. And we must keep the president on his word. Political accountability means something.
Asante sana, Boaz Waruku. It means something. And that's a solution that we are at the end of this hour. We're looking forward to the next. September is coming. We're looking forward to that. And we'll continue with more conversations as we go ahead. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the
Situation Room. The only way to start your day.